Today, we're diving into one of the most controversial discoveries in paleontology, a finding so impossible that it's been debated for over 80 years. We're talking about the shoe print in Triassic rock, a fossilized footprint that appears to show the clear outline of a leather shoe sole embedded in stone that's supposedly 200 million years old. Picture this. It's 1938, and geologist John Reid is fossil hunting in the mountains near Antelope Spring, Utah. He's searching for trilobite fossils in rock layers from the Triassic period when he spots something that shouldn't exist. Embedded in the ancient stone is what appears to be a human footprint, but not just any footprint. This looks like the sole of a leather shoe, complete with stitching marks and heel impressions. Now, let me explain why this discovery should be absolutely impossible according to mainstream science. The rock formation where Reid found this print dates to approximately 200 million years ago, the Triassic period. At that time, the most advanced life forms on Earth were early dinosaurs and primitive mammals. Humans wouldn't evolve for another 199 million years, and shoes wouldn't be invented until humans developed complex tool-making abilities. Yet here was what appeared to be clear evidence of a manufactured shoe sole pressed into mud that later turned to stone during the age of dinosaurs. Reid carefully documented his discovery, taking detailed photographs and measurements. The impression measured about 10 inches long and showed what looked like the distinctive pattern of a leather sole with stitching around the edges. Most remarkably, there appeared to be a small trilobite fossilized right in the middle of the footprint, as if it had been stepped on. The discovery made headlines and sparked immediate controversy. Supporters argued that this was clear evidence that humans or human-like beings with advanced technology existed far earlier than conventional science believed. The presence of the trilobite fossil seemed to confirm that the print was genuinely ancient, not a modern hoax. But skeptics quickly raised serious questions about Reid's interpretation of what he had found. They pointed out that natural geological processes can create formations that look remarkably like artificial objects. Rock layers can crack, split, and erode in ways that produce patterns that seem too organized to be natural. The shoe print also raised uncomfortable questions about the nature of evidence and interpretation in paleontology. How do we distinguish between genuine artifacts and natural formations that happen to resemble familiar objects? What level of proof is required before we accept extraordinary claims that contradict established scientific understanding? One of the main criticisms of the shoe print was the lack of other supporting evidence. If humans with shoemaking technology existed 200 million years ago, where were the other artifacts? Where were the tools, buildings, or other signs of civilization? A single footprint, no matter how convincing, seemed insufficient to overturn everything we know about human evolution. Geologists who examined Reid's photographs pointed out that the stitching marks could easily be natural cracks in the rock. The heel impression might be nothing more than differential weathering. Even the overall shoe-like shape could be explained by the way rock layers separate along natural planes of weakness. The trilobite fossil that Reid claimed was stepped on also raised questions. Trilobites were marine creatures that lived in shallow seas. For a trilobite to be preserved in the same formation as a footprint would require very specific conditions, the kind of muddy marine environment where trilobites died and were quickly buried. But this explanation created its own problems. If the area was underwater when the trilobite died, how could there be a human footprint in the same layer? The environmental conditions that preserve trilobites aren't typically associated with terrestrial footprints. Modern paleontologists who have studied similar formations suggest that what Reid found was likely a spall zone, a place where rock layers separated naturally along bedding planes. When rocks split this way, they can leave impressions that look remarkably artificial, especially to observers who are primed to see patterns. The human brain is exceptionally good at recognizing familiar shapes and patterns, even when they don't actually exist. This phenomenon, called pareidolia, explains why we see faces in clouds, animals in rock formations, and familiar objects in random patterns. It's possible that Reid's shoe print is an example of this psychological tendency applied to geological formations. However, dismissing the shoe print entirely raises its own questions about scientific objectivity. How do we ensure that skepticism doesn't become dogma? When unusual discoveries challenge established theories, how do we balance healthy skepticism with genuine scientific inquiry? The Reid shoe print also highlights broader questions about the completeness of the fossil record. We know that fossilization is an extremely rare process that requires very specific conditions. Most organisms that have ever lived left no fossil trace at all. Is it possible that earlier, more advanced life forms existed but left no detectable evidence? This question becomes even more complex when we consider how difficult it would be to recognize evidence of truly ancient civilizations. After 200 million years, what would survive of our current technology? Would future geologists be able to detect evidence of human civilization from rock layers formed today? The story of the shoe print in Triassic rock teaches us important lessons about the nature of evidence and the process of scientific interpretation. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, but what constitutes sufficient evidence depends on our existing framework of knowledge and understanding. Reid's discovery also demonstrates how individual interpretation can shape what we see in ambiguous evidence. The same rock formation that looked like clear proof of ancient humans to Reid appeared to be a natural geological formation to trained geologists. This doesn't necessarily mean that Reid was wrong or that the geological interpretation is correct. It means that the process of understanding unusual discoveries requires careful analysis, multiple perspectives, and often more evidence than a single anomalous finding can provide. The shoe print controversy also reflects broader tensions in paleontology and archaeology between conventional theories and anomalous discoveries. Mainstream science operates by building theories based on consistent, reproducible evidence. Anomalies that don't fit established patterns are often explained away or dismissed. But history shows us that some anomalies do represent genuine discoveries that require us to revise our understanding. The challenge lies in distinguishing between true anomalies that expand our knowledge and apparent anomalies that result from misinterpretation or wishful thinking. The Reid shoe print remains a subject of debate among researchers interested in out-of-place artifacts. Some continue to argue that it represents genuine evidence of ancient human presence, while others maintain that it's a natural formation that happens to resemble a shoe sole. What makes this case particularly interesting is that it's impossible to definitively resolve without additional evidence. The original rock formation has been weathered and damaged over the decades since Reid's discovery, making detailed analysis difficult. The shoe print in Triassic rock reminds us that the past is far more mysterious and complex than we often assume. Whether Reid's discovery represents ancient human technology or natural geological processes, it forces us to think carefully about how we interpret unusual evidence and what we're willing to accept as proof of extraordinary claims. The next time you encounter claims about impossible artifacts or anomalous discoveries, remember the Reid shoe print. Ask hard questions about evidence, interpretation, and alternative explanations, but also stay open to the possibility that our understanding of the past might be incomplete or incorrect. What do you think about the shoe print in Triassic rock? Could it really be evidence of ancient humans, or is there a more conventional explanation for this unusual formation? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this exploration of one of paleontology's most controversial discoveries, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. We've got more stories about the mysterious artifacts and anomalous evidence that challenge our understanding of history. Remember, the most important questions aren't always the ones with easy answers. Sometimes, the mysteries that resist simple explanations teach us the most about how we understand our world.